Imagine for a moment that you are walking through your own life as a ghost. You move through rooms, you sit at tables, you perform your duties at work, and you lie down next to a partner at night. Yet there is a profound echoing sensation that you aren't actually there. You are a master of the unpresence. You have spent a lifetime perfecting the art of taking up as little psychological space as possible. You are the one who never complains, the one who anticipates everyone else's needs before they even speak them, and the one whose own opinions seem to dissolve the moment they meet the slightest resistance. You might have been told you are low maintenance, easygoing, or a great listener, but inside there is a suffocating silence. This is the internal landscape of the child who was never heard. If you grew up in an environment where your emotions were treated as an inconvenience, where your voice was met with "not now," or your distress was overshadowed by the much louder, much more volatile emotions of a parent, you learned a dangerous lesson. To be heard is to be a burden. To be seen is to be a threat. Here is the core paradox that governs your life today. The very silence that once saved you, the ability to hide your needs to keep the peace at home, is the exact thing that is now sabotaging your happiness. You survived your childhood by becoming invisible, but now, as an adult, you are dying of loneliness in a room full of people who claim to love you, but who don't actually know you. You are trapped in a prison of your own making, built from the bricks of every word you never said. To understand the roots of this silence, we must look at the architecture of the developing brain. A child's brain is not a finished product. It is a social organ, wired to adapt to its environment for the sake of survival. When a child expresses a need, whether through a cry, a question, or a tantrum, and that need is consistently ignored, minimized, or punished, the nervous system undergoes a profound rewiring. This is often referred to in clinical psychology as childhood emotional neglect, CEN. Unlike physical abuse, which is the presence of a bad act, neglect is the absence of a good one. It is the invisible trauma. It is the still face of a caregiver who is physically present, but emotionally 1,000 miles away. When this happens, the child develops what D.W. Winnicott called the false self. The false self is a mask designed to comply with the environment. If the parent is depressed, the child becomes the cheerleader. If the parent is volatile, the child becomes the quiet one. Over time, the child loses access to their authentic self. The neurological muscles required to identify and express internal states begin to atrophy. Furthermore, this environment triggers a state of hypervigilance. Because the child cannot rely on their caregivers to tune into them, the child must tune into their caregivers with surgical precision. This is a state of constant scanning. Your amygdala, the brain's smoke detector, becomes oversized and overactive. You aren't just good at reading the room, you are neurologically wired to detect micro shifts in tone, posture, and mood in others as a way to predict when you might be rejected or ignored. This creates a state of avoidant attachment. You learned that bringing your true self to a relationship leads to disappointment. Therefore, the safest way to exist is to remain a mystery, even to yourself. You have developed a default mode network that is constantly rehearsing how to be what others want, leaving no room for the emergence of who you actually are. The price of this silence is a profound, invisible grief. It is the grief of a life unlived. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of beings for others, a state where one's existence is defined entirely by how they are perceived by the outside world. When you were never heard as a child, you stopped being a subject in your own life and became an object in the lives of others. You became a mirror. When people look at you, they see their own needs, their own reflections, and their own comfort, because that is all you allow them to see. Carl Jung famously stated, "The most damaging thing in the life of a child is the unlived life of the parent." If your parents were too consumed by their own trauma, their own work, or their own ego, you likely inherited the unlived portion of your own childhood. You traded your authentic vitality for relational security. The tragedy is that this trade doesn't actually work. You believe that by being quiet, by being easy, and by never having needs, you will finally be loved. But the love you receive in that state isn't for you, it's for the mask you wear. This creates a deep existential ache. You feel a silent hunger for a connection that you are simultaneously terrified to pursue. Simple moments become battlegrounds of internal conflict. Choosing a restaurant, expressing a minor disagreement, or asking for a hug feels like a life or death risk. To you, speaking up isn't just a communication skill, it feels like an act of war against the safety you worked so hard to build. You are haunted by the fear that if you were to truly speak, to scream, to cry, to demand, the world would simply turn its back and walk away, confirming your deepest childhood suspicion that you are fundamentally not worth listening to. This invisible wiring doesn't stay in the nursery. It follows you into your boardroom, your bedroom, and your friendships. It manifests as a series of sophisticated coping strategies that look like personality traits, but are actually scars. 1. The chameleon in relationships. You are an expert at becoming whoever the person in front of you needs to be. In a relationship, you have no shape of your own. You adopt your partner's hobbies, their opinions, and their social circle until you wake up one day wondering whose life you are actually living. 2. The invisible overachiever. In your career, you are the one who does the work of 3 people but never asks for the promotion. You wait to be discovered because asking for recognition feels like an admission of ego, and ego was a forbidden emotion in your house. 3. Decision paralysis. When someone asks, "What do you want for dinner?" or "What do you want to do with your life?" you feel a genuine sense of panic. Because you were never heard, your internal feedback loop that tells you what you actually like is paralyzed. Your want muscle is paralyzed. 4. Chronic fatigue and body tension. Holding back a lifetime of unspoken words is physically exhausting. Many children who were never heard grow into adults with chronic jaw tension, digestive issues, or unexplained fatigue. Your body is literally bracing against the words it is forbidden to say. 5. The ghosting defense. When a relationship gets too close, when someone actually starts to see you, you might feel an overwhelming urge to run. Vulnerability feels like exposure. You would rather disappear than risk the pain of being heard and then reject it. 6. The resentment burnout. Because you never say no, you take on everything. But because you are human, you eventually reach a breaking point. You don't get angry, you just shut down. You become a cold, distant version of yourself, punishing others with the very silence that was once your only refuge. The first step of unlearning is the act of witnessing. You must stop gaslighting yourself. You must stop saying it wasn't that bad just because you weren't hit. The absence of a voice is a presence of pain. You must begin to identify these behaviors not as who you are, but as how you survived. Healing the roots of silence is not about learning to talk more. It is about the radical act of reclaiming the right to exist. This journey often begins with inner child reparenting. It involves going back to that version of you that sat in the quiet room and saying the words no one else said. I see you. I hear you. What you feel matters, even if it's inconvenient. You must become the witness for yourself that your caregivers could not be. This is the work of shadow integration. You have spent years pushing your loud parts, your needy parts, and your angry parts into the basement. Healing requires you to open that door and invite them to the table. It requires choosing softness over the rigid armor of silence. In the words of the psychologist Alice Miller, the truth about our childhood is stored up in our body, and although we can repress it, we can never alter it. Our intellect can be deceived, our feelings manipulated, and conceptions confusing, and our body tricked with medication. But someday our body will present its bill, for it is as incorruptible as a child who, still whole in spirit, will accept no compromises or excuses, and it will not stop tormenting us until we stop evading the truth.
The truth is this: you were never too much. You were just in an environment that was too small. Your voice is not a burden. Your needs are not an imposition. Your presence is not a mistake. The goal of this journey is not to fix your silence, but to make your internal world a place where it is finally safe to be loud. You don't need to be low maintenance to be worthy of love. In fact, the most beautiful parts of you are likely the high maintenance ones, the complex, vibrant, and messy parts that have been waiting in the dark for decades. It is time to take up space. It is time to breathe deeply. It is time to be heard.